Today I'm joined by Licia Driscoll, founder and editor of the Polity and author of the Energy and Environment Briefing, a publication covering energy, environment, politics, and public policy for readers across Australia as well as internationally. With a background spanning physical mathematics, policy analysis, and journalism, Licia approaches complex issues through the first principles thinking, evidence, and thoughtful analysis rather than ideology. She also contributes to the Spectator Australia, the Quadrant, and explores the intersection of policy, culture, institutions, and society. Licia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Randy. Thank you for having me on.
So I first kind of caught a glimpse of what you were doing on LinkedIn, and it kind of drew me in, what you were doing and your writing. And I was like, this is a very interesting woman on the other side of the globe who I want to talk to. So thank you very much for taking the time out of your day. I think we're at 4:30 here. You're at 8:30 a.m. your time. So we've got a little gap, but appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Oh, pleasure. Pleasure. Lovely to visit.
So, Licia, I want to start just by getting a little bit to know a little bit more about you. You're from Australia. And you had put in some of the documents you sent through to us. You kind of grew up on the outskirts of Brisbane, I believe, correct?
That's right.
Walk us through what young Licia was like.
Sure. Yeah, it was. Brisbane has a large green belt, so that's the only area that has acreage. The rest is very suburban. So it was 5 acres. We had a horse stud. We grew up there, no town water, and we had a tank, a huge tank, and in the dry we'd have to also purchase water. We had a dam, and we'd have to, just be very careful, be water-wise. I always grew up conscious of every drop. And, we had a bore as well, and, filling up the horses' troughs with bore water, things like that. So it was a really good way to become aware of water and the environment. Yeah, lots of work, lots of things to do, of course. So that was definitely until I was until 20, till about 20, I was out doing that. Yeah, and then my grandparents moved out to a more rural area, 80 acres.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so then they had more animals like cattle and a turf farm and lucerne, things like that. So it was proper farming, tractor, all the whole works. So that was great. And I'd regularly visit them like every, weekend or every other weekend. Yeah. So it was really, really great way to grow up and a real love for the land.
I was just going to say that, what I'm hearing there is just a full appreciation and a generation of love for the environment that you're in, right? And everything that contributes to it.
Yeah, for sure.
So 20 years old, they move off to a bigger farm, and I'm assuming now you're looking at some post-secondary studies if you're already not in it. And how does that journey start to take shape?
Sure. I enjoyed maths at school. I enjoyed the black and white binary is right or wrong. I used to find writing a bit more grey, and so I do that, but I enjoyed the maths, and it gives you a understanding of the world and how things work. Truth is really important, and the physical sciences are particularly embedded in truth. So that drew me in, and it gave me a great appreciation just for, everything around us, how things work. That was an excellent time to be learning, and I met a lot of people, I met a lot of engineers. We had crossover classes, and so, fast forward many years now, I've had a family, and I've gone back to doing something in the community now. My little ones are bigger, all now at school, and so it's nice to talk to people. Yeah. So I've gone back to those roots. I thought, because I did public health, and I thought, I'll write about public health, but I've been more drawn to the sciences and to energy and environment. Yeah. So those more earlier roots of my life of maths and water, farm work and things. It's been quite interesting to how things come full circle.
It is. Well, and I'm kind of chuckling a little bit because, you're drawn to the black and white of mathematics, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I agree. It's like it's either right, it's either wrong, unless you get into even theory is technically right or wrong. And you just described writing as gray.
Yeah.
How did so that's a shift, right? Having that black and white mentality. Do you enjoy living in the gray right now?
I do now. I do. I've grown, I've matured, and I'm able to, handle both and hold both in my mind. And it's just funny, someone was critiquing me recently and on LinkedIn, and they were really perturbed that I wrote something that wasn't completely black and white, because it was an opinion piece and they're quite grey and you move quickly between ideas. You don't flesh out every single thing in opinion pieces because they're not, they're short. Then that's just not what you do. And so, and he was like, oh, but it's not right. And I was like, it's just, it's just the rhetoric that I took. It's just the angle, the flourish that I wanted to use to move quickly to another area. So anyway, it was quite interesting. And so I think I've really become accustomed now to this grey life of writing. It's fun. It's creative.
Well, and it is creative. And I want to compliment you because, one of the things that really kind of drew me in to want to talk to you was, I referenced it as you have an incredible ability to kind of thread the needle. Right. We weren't necessarily, we were going to talk about, how you become right about politics without becoming political. Right. Incredibly hard to do in today's world. Yet I found with you were managing to do that. Right. I remember reading the One Piece. And in the moment I read the beginning, I was like, oh, she's conservative. And then, by the end, I'm like, but she brought up viewpoints from both sides. And what it highlighted to me was how quickly as individuals we're like, we look for, are you right or are you left? And right now I have to compliment you. You're threading that needle very well and probably upsetting a few people that still just want to argue I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah, and that bothers me that people, want to be like that. It's a shame, and makes me a little sad because there's so much goodness on both sides. And I am conservative in my heart, but I also appreciate things from both sides. And I like to synthesize and try and just make things palatable. I really don't like the conflict and contention on both sides. Yeah. It's a shame because there's bigger things at play when people are busy contending over trivial things that don't matter, like who's left and who's right, because it's in energy as well, and it really shouldn't be an issue of energy of what's left and what's right. I made a comment recently, one comment initially on nuclear, because I'd been thinking about water so much. I was refreshing my brain with a different topic. And, and it was just surprising, just I'm a bit angry at some of the comments and annoyance, like I said, perturbed. So it just shouldn't really be that way when people dig into one side, because energy is something that it needs, for energy security, you need to have a variety of sources.
Yeah, options in front of you, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
You need a full portfolio. And in Australia, we're very focused, our government is very focused on renewables. It's laser focused, and they're trying to roll that out as quickly as possible. But without a balanced portfolio, it really leaves you open to lots of, problems that come up, as we've seen with fuel. The problem in the Middle East, that's caused all kinds of problems when we're too reliant on one particular energy source. And I feel that will be a problem in the future for Australia if they don't diversify their energy portfolio from renewables to, a wider mix.
Well, and it's what it really speaks to, I think, is the leadership aspect of governance in a way. If we swing that pendulum, and we're in Canada, so we had a massive pendulum swing when it came to oil and gas versus renewables here, and similar. When the leadership isn't preparing or has done the work ahead of time to prepare for that renewable, and I'm not anti-renewable, I'm all for it.
Yeah, same.
But the infrastructure has to be in place for that to be able to succeed, right? Otherwise, all you do is you invest millions and billions of dollars to something that will never succeed because the country's not set up for that to be allowed to happen.
Yeah, that's right. There's I'm like you, I'm not anti-renewable, energy agnostic. And so there is a point, we do love our countryside, we love our landscapes, and we don't mar all of that. And there has to be a lot of wisdom in where you put these renewables as well. And some people have been really innovative in putting them on car parks and on tops of buildings and things in the cities. And also I'm a fan of microgrids as well, where you have a smaller area, and that's just a compact area that's self-sufficient within a grid, which has its solar or whatever type of generator that you want to use. And I'm a fan of, nuclear. So, little micro reactors to run those, and they're considered for mining. And I know the US Army is big into microgrids. I think they were working on them out in Idaho laboratory last year.
Wow.
Yeah. So
there's lots. Technology is out there.
It is, and the wisdom needs to be in the rollout. Ours is rolling out too fast for the people.
Yeah.
And it's just costing so much money. So there just needs to be wisdom in that. And I wrote for the Spectator about more haste, less speed to do with the energy rollout.
Love that.
As well in Australia. And that basically just sums up the whole premise of the argument that I had.
I love that. It's almost slowing down allows you to go faster.
That's right. You can do things better. You can do things properly. In Australia, we don't have a very good track record with building big things. Either stalls like our high-speed rail, or it just blows out like our Snowy 2.0, our hydro. Sorry, that's what it is. It's hydropower. So that's cost so much more than they anticipated. So, there's work that needs to be done in Australia in governance and leadership, like you were mentioning before.
100%. And so that's a perfect segue into what I want to talk to you about, which is leadership. One of the most interesting things I found about what you told me was you typically do not read modern day leadership books.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And you focus more on older writings, and I have some of them here. We reference Aristotle, Charles. Bear with me here. Krauthammer, Oscar Wilde, and then you also just reference founding father principles.
Yeah.
So this was very unique to me because I'm a huge reader of modern day leadership books. Mm-hmm. What drew you to this reading, and how has that influenced how you're looking at things right now?
Yeah, look, my husband says, don't drink below the horses. That old saying when the soldiers go. And so I guess that applies to this principle here with going to like key sources, North Star ideas. So I'm sorry, but I just, to be honest, just some of the modern leadership, I just think, well, it's just distilled principles from these other thinkers. Yeah, and I find also that the way that the older generations wrote and expressed their ideas, I just find it resonates more with me. I find it a bit more beautiful. So,
I think you're right. Things do distill from the generations previous, right?
Yeah. And they all, and again, the founding fathers and all these people that I've referenced, maybe not Aristotle, but, they get their thinking from the wisdom literature, as well. So if you want to go back further to the actual scripture and wisdom literature, and then it really roots in there. But, you know, sorry.
And that has shaped what, you referenced as a first principles thinking.
Yeah.
And that influences your writing.
Yeah, that's right. And that segues in or dovetails into physics, the physical sciences and things like that, because it's just certain principles and then you move on from them. So, yeah, the Founding Fathers, gave perfect examples of how to run the country, even in the chaos, and, how to give debates they're hefty debates, vigorous debates, but not nasty like ours are
Right.
these days, So they're great examples just in that instance.
Are ours even debates? Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, they're not. Really not.
They're not. They're arguments. That's all they are.
I know, and that trickles down, like going back to things like LinkedIn, where someone because I'm happy for a debate. It's not nasty, of course. I think it's playful. I find all that playful, throw around ideas and not get too emotionally invested because, in some ways, it's just politics. I know it covers a lot of things in your life, but also it's just politics. So you need to look at it as very trivial, but it also is very weighty as well, in what it can become and what it can do to people's lives, like the people in Iran and all that type of oppression that we've seen throughout history and century examples. But if people keep it just politics and light and playful and, enjoy the art of it, then you won't get to that heavy, oppressive side.
Right. When it's all said and done, the people we put in charge of our countries, and those politicians, their job is to find resolution, right? Yeah. To find ways to collaborate on things.
Yeah.
Not one side always needs to be right. Not one side always needs to be wrong.
No, that's right. There needs to be a bit more bipartisanship.
Yeah.
Again, I wrote about the two-party system and how it moved from founding principles, because this whole party system has led to so much more problems, I think, when it was just one person, you elect that person and then they do. But these super PACs and people, vying for power and money coming in and then, changing what someone might go in with good intentions, but changing because they have to get the votes. So the two-party system, or however many you have, multi-party system is, it really, it's a real ball and chain around the progress and bipartisanship. And
yeah, for sure it is. So if you had to pick one of those authors, writers from your favorites, which one would stand out to you the most?
Oh, it's hard. It's so hard because they stand out for different things. Charles, Charles Krauthammer is like a hero writer for me. He's a great example, and I love, because I resonate with him in lots of different ways. How we don't really like to, like, I'm talking about myself.
No, that's why we're here.
We don't, in our writing at least, we don't like to talk about ourselves and our ideas and stuff, and just some of the things that he had, our personal feelings, but just go to the, like I said, the base principles. You try to argue from a point of logic, logos, rather than manipulating people's emotions and going into, the eros and using yourself, the pathos, as I have all this knowledge, I have, what I mean, and people do, well, I am a senator, I am this, so listen to me, I am your reverend priest.
I'm going to have to look him up. He is not familiar to me.
He's passed away. He passed away in the teens.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's he was an amazing man. He had an accident when he was in medical school because he was going to be a doctor, and then he dived into a pool and he broke his neck, and then for the rest of from his young life, he was confined to a wheelchair, you know. So he finished his medical training, and then he, you know, went on to writing and to journalism. He always had that interest in politics anyway, and like I did as well, like even as a child, I had little politics stickers and stuff. I don't know, it's just like...
I love it.
I know, what kid, right?
Yeah.
And I remember telling my husband, oh, and I had a crush on our treasurer, like, you know, like a crush like a little kid. Peter Costello, I thought he was great, like he was funny. He was one who could debate properly.
Right.
And he was quite amusing in Parliament. And even as a child, I like recognized it, and I was like, oh, that's great. So yeah, just funny things like that. But yeah, Charles, then did great things in his life, and he was always so measured, and he was so wise, and a real philosopher. So yeah, I encourage everyone to read his work.
Do you do anything, just as you're talking about this, do you do anything, so you mentioned you have kids. Do you do anything in the youth space? Like, are you active in trying to get this message into the next generation of what healthy debate looks like, of, you know, or are you just a lead by example, you know, watch and learn kind of thing? Yeah,
well, I'm really a low-key person. I remember saying this to someone that I interviewed just recently, that I'm just a bit of a background person, really. And they were like, yeah, me too. But you know, we got to not be that way. We got to, you know, if we want to succeed, we got to progress and step out a little bit. So no, I haven't stepped into the youth realm. I love the youth, and I do get on with them. I enjoy them very much, and I feel that I just moved into journalism because I thought, oh, it'd just be nice to have a column, you know, just be a background person. And I find that the way that the world is now with social media, that you can't really do that. That was old school. Now journalism involves what you're doing, podcasting, being, you know, out social. And so it's new experiences. I've been in the home for such a long time, so sort of coming out again.
Finding your space. Yeah,
coming out again into the world. But it's really lovely. Yeah, but the youth definitely have, they've got, you know, for generation, Gen Z or whatever?
Yeah, I can't even keep track anymore, to be honest with you.
The young ones.
Gen something. Yeah.
Yeah, with the young ones, you know, I feel for them because of the housing market. It's really hard for them to get a start. I recently saw a little brief documentary on their just hard time applying for jobs, hundreds of jobs, nothing, you know, they're educated and they're really struggling to get a foot in the world. And I can see why they're turning to socialism, because, you know, a handout would help.
It provides you hope.
That's right, a handout, and they can move on from that. So I can absolutely see the lure of that. Mm-hmm. What else is there for them, you know? So, so they're getting a lot of that type of message. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know what else they can, what to do.
Well, I would just encourage you, as someone who loves dealing, you know, and spending time with youth and mentoring, I would encourage you to get, you know, become a mentor. They need it. They need these great influences. They need the people that teach them how to debate and not argue, how to listen. And, you know, I think you're checking a lot of those boxes. So that's my challenge to you.
Oh, you're so sweet.
They need good influences, Licia. It's it's not hard to find bad ones out there nowadays, but it's incredibly hard to find the good ones. So I want to touch briefly on Polity, and then you also write in. Now I've lost my spot here, but you have another blog or newsletter as well.
Oh yeah, the Energy and Environment Briefing.
Thank you. Yes,
that's right.
So this is your way of staying in touch with what is going on in the world. This is a global writing. Right?
Yeah, in two parts. Right. It's Australia and then And then the second part has some global news as well to keep up to date with that. And sometimes I apply it to Australia if I feel inclined to.
Sure.
But yeah, it's funny how you just progress. You didn't intend to do things, because I thought, oh, I'll just start writing. I might, meet people. And I started the Polity just as a little place to start practicing writing. And then I started pitching the Spectator. And then I took that interest because of a political, in 2005, there was a federal election, and we were debating nuclear energy was one of the things on the table. So, yeah, I went back to that and found that I really was drawn back to energy. So later in the year, I, because I was writing political things, and later in the year, I started the Energy and Environment newsletter. Yeah. And then as my skills developed, I thought, oh, it's more of a briefing. And so it's because I was doing the research anyway, I just thought, well, I'll just share it with people, they can see as well. Because I was reading stuff and I was interested in it. At first it was just a basic roundup of a few news items in Australia, a few news items in the world, and just a little summary. But as I've been doing it for, I don't know, maybe 8 months or something, I've, applied it more to politics, and it's become more of a policy now. I look more at what's happening just in our federal, energy environment department. And, so I do the policy and I do the news as well. Yeah.
Well, that's good, because now I want to get into the meat and potatoes.
Sure.
We briefly spoke before we started the podcast about your you've done some work in water. You have a good knowledge about some of the issues facing Australia right now. I had a gentleman on the podcast a couple weeks ago. It was just released, Fauzi Melham. He's out of Dubai in the UAE. And so what I'm really enjoying right now is kind of traveling the globe in my own little way.
Yeah.
And what I love is highlighting that water issues are a global issue, right? The water issues I have in Medicine Hat, the water issues in Arizona, Dubai, in Australia, well, they may be somewhat different. The challenges and sometimes the solutions can often be the same. And I love to bring that message forward and things we can learn from. So are you ready to talk water?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Let's go.
Okay. So where is your space or head at right now? And if you could walk us through kind of what you're seeing in Australia when it comes to the water situation. And I know that's regional as well. I got to say that.
Yeah, sure. Like with Australia, just quick, we have, a really massive Great Artesian Basin that covers about a third of the country, or a fifth of the country, about 20%. And it's, across Queensland, Northern Territory, New South Wales. It's a big chunk of the country underground water. And so then we have that resource, and of course it's very dry on the ground, above ground. And we have problems, of course, with salinity. We have the brackish water, acidity, things like that. Over farming brings up the salinity. So, so that's kind of some of the issues of Australia and what we have. We also have the Murray-Darling Basin as well, and that's probably the main water basin that I'll probably talk about, because it has most of our food bowl. Yeah. I guess can I compare it? I'd like to maybe compare it with the Colorado River.
Sure. Yeah.
Comparatively, it'd be kind of a bit easier, because you have this Colorado River Basin problem at the moment. It's a big drought, and I've been reading a lot actually about that. My dad's in Orange County, so they draw on the water as well, and he talks to me about the water issues. But yeah, so they're quite similar, the Colorado River and the Murray-Darling Basin, where they're ag regions taking most of the water. They have over-allocated the water as well, and the climate is less rain. I know less snowpack up in Colorado, and even here we have a late season. I think it has snowed now, but when we went just recently, like a couple of weeks ago, there was no snow. It was very, very high, but there was no snow. I could hike in the mountains. So we have these climate issues. Yeah, and the Murray, though, they are trying to include, well, actually, with the Murray, they have these, something, I don't know if America does it much, we have these water, I think it's called water trading. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's water trading, and it's quite interesting. I don't know if it's good, but it seems, on paper it sounds good. When they initially did it, it sounded like a good idea where someone from agriculture or irrigation could sell their water. If they weren't going to use and farm much in a dry season, they could sell it on to someone else who would. And water goes, I'm not sure if it's forced, but it goes to people who are who have less important stock and less important, to the more important, growers. So it's quite strange. I just want to say, though, just that they do this water trading, and it seems like a good idea on paper. And you seem like, oh, well, if you're not farming, you can sell your water to someone who is.
Yeah.
But for some reason, they've opened it up to international buyers. So people overseas can buy Australian water. And also hedge funders and, superannuation it's like an actual stock market. And
it's
so people can buy
being
the
traded.
Water, then they'll sell
That's right.
at a higher rate to farmers who need it. And that's just also the government buys back water from irrigationists. And they use that to, it seems like a good idea to, of course, help the river, to increase the flow of the river as it gets drier for the health of the river. But definitely international sales of water doesn't seem like a good thing. So we just had an election in the Murray-Darling, well, it's a very long area, but we had it in part of the Murray-Darling Basin, a place called Farra. And it was quite interesting that the Conservative Party that had been there for like 20 years was pushed out because of all the problems with the water. The farmers are very disgruntled by everything that's happening all across the Murray-Darling Basin. So, they got pushed out. The Conservatives and a more populist party is in there, and the person that was elected is irrigationist from many years, farmer person. Yeah, so he's trying to reform the water policy and the water trading that we have for the Murray. So that's quite an issue and I think it's quite unique to Australia. I don't think many other countries do that much. I think in the US there's a little bit of trading, like maybe between California and Arizona, but it's not like to the scale that we have. It's the Murray crosses 4 states, and it's about 2.4 million people that it services. So
sure.
It's a lot smaller population than Colorado River, but it's just a strange.
Well, and it's just as significant, right? Whether you're 2.4 or 24, the impact is the same on every individual. But that is interesting. So they've essentially turned water into a commodity, no different than oil and gas or any other commodity, gold, silver.
And I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't like that at all. Like, I understand water needing to have an associated cost to it. I do. I think here in Alberta, where I am, in our region, we have 75% of all the irrigated agriculture in Canada is where I live. So, we are the heart of irrigated agriculture. That all being said, is it ebbs and flows with the snowpacks, with, the runoffs, the rain, and everything that happens in the spring. As it turns out, this year we had a lot of rain and reservoirs are now full. 2 years ago, we were in the middle of a major drought. So everyone's easily forgotten, I assure you, how bad it can be. But I don't believe, I have never heard anyways of the, it being treated and especially sold to foreign buyers. That is a concern. One thing I did just read yesterday, though, is the district, so the irrigation district I'm in the farmers. So they are now opening up, it sounds like, some allocations for new licenses. And they are going for as much as $15,000 per acre. And there was one transaction that just took place, and it was a $4 million transaction, and it didn't include the land. All it was the water rights. Yeah. And that is how valuable this commodity has become.
Yeah. Same here. You can buy water. You can buy the right any land associated. So it's, and I don't know how good that is either, but that's what's happening in Australia, something that I thought was quite interesting and quite unique to Australia. So there's that water issue. But another thing that I find interesting, I guess because you mentioned about talking about, Australia, US, and globally. Like with the Colorado River, they're about, I think it was about 34 feet or 32 feet in Lake Powell. And they have hydro up there. And so this drought is affecting the hydro, and they soon, if they drop to like about 32, 34 feet, any much more in water, then they won't be able to, function.
I think it's called the dead zone, right?
Yeah.
I think it's what it's called.
Yeah.
Deadpool. Thank you. Yeah. Not the movie.
Right. So, and I guess, a similar thing will be happening down in Lake Mead as well.
Yeah.
So just the interconnection of water with energy as well is quite an interesting thing. Yeah, I know Utah is able to, bring a bit more water down from other reservoirs down to Lake Powell, but it's a very serious situation because millions of homes depend upon this hydropower. And I really, the population, so many people are drawing from the Colorado River, and the population growth seems to be focused coastally, 40 million people draw on the Colorado River, and about 20 million people are in Southern California that draw upon it. So it just makes sense that Southern California would have more desalination, and I know there's one in Carlsbad. There's a recycling center in Orange County, near where my dad is. But I think just a bit more of that needs to happen. The people inland can desal brackish water, so there are options. Despite how things look on the outside, there are these options available. But I think Israel is a great success story of what is happening with desalination. They do an amazing amount. I think, what do they have? It's desert, just desert. 60%, is the Negev desert. And they, how much do they, about 75, they recycle nearly 90% of their urban water. That is amazing. And it's at such a great purity that people can drink it. It's reverse osmosis, so they're able to remove the the drugs, the hormones, all that type of stuff. And I think California and Australia can just learn a lot from that, particularly though, the Colorado River issue that's happening. Just all the money that was coming from the federal government is the Inflation Reduction Act. The money that was coming from the Inflation Reduction Act from the Biden administration, there was about how much was there? $4 billion, I think. I think it was about $4 billion coming from the Inflation Reduction Act from the federal government. And I know people are talking about Trump's administration halting and being against, environmental things, but it's not so much. It's like the renewables are getting halted, which is okay because that needs more care and attention. But the money still goes to the Colorado Basin, and they're paying people to not use as much water, which helps them keep their farm alive. So, and the Trump administration is actually reviewing that Colorado River legal stuff as well. Here in Australia, we're also reviewing the Darling Basin. So both areas are looking at the legalities of how to improve with all
because I think Colorado River, I think it affects 7 states, if I'm not mistaken.
It does.
And one of them is Arizona, which obviously, I'm heavily invested in right now. And I was just talking with a gentleman yesterday, actually, down in Scottsdale, Arizona, and they feed out of the Colorado River. It's called CAP. Colorado Alliance something. I can't remember, and I don't want to say it fully incorrectly. Anyways, long story short, he was saying that Scottsdale gets 80% of their water out of CAP, and they are potentially facing I want to make sure I say that, potentially facing a 70% reduction in the next 3 months. And that's catastrophic, right?
Yeah,
that's not a little.
No.
You're turning taps off, and that's drinking water, outdoor use, everything. When we think about desalination, and you mentioned Israel, and I mentioned I was on a call on a podcast with Fauzi, and he is in Dubai. And it's the same thing, right? They don't have fresh water. Everything is desalinated, and I would encourage you actually to listen to Fauzi's podcast, because they have sustainable cities in the UAE, which, similar to what you just talked about, this fully recycled system of water. The desalination gets used here, it then gets turned back in, and it's turned back in, and it's turned back in, and it is not waste. I get very frustrated with North American attitude towards water, because we've always felt like it's never ending. It's just it's always going to be there, and because of that, we've always done what we've always done, and nothing is changing. Nothing is getting better. And it drives me crazy, to be totally honest with you. Why can we not learn from some of these other places around the globe who've been doing this for decades?
Yeah, I know. Yet it's amazing.
It makes no sense.
I know. Israel is an amazing success story with the drip irrigation as well as the desal, and they make the desert bloom with all of their technology. It's an amazing thing. A man in the grocery store, an older gentleman I was talking to, and he even mentioned it just a couple of weeks ago. Yep. And I was reading about water, and he was talking about how wonderful Israel is. So I investigated, and there we are. But Australia does have desal. Perth, a city across in the west, they get about half of their water from desal. Yeah, it's really good. And we do some recycling as well, like in different various cities as well.
We have to start getting creative. We have to start looking at what other countries, nations are doing. Israel is just such a great example. Netafim, they're a major drip manufacturer, biggest in the world, right?
Yes, I was
it's crazy. Even I laugh. I mentioned before the podcast, I'm in landscape and irrigation construction. All of our water meters come from Israel.
Yeah.
That is where they are made. And they're made there because they've been doing this forever, right? They understood early on that in order to manage your water better, you have to know what your numbers are.
Yes.
And so, but we're just so slow to adopt this, it seems like. It's driving me nuts.
Yes.
But, we'll change the world eventually.
Yeah, they do manage their numbers well. Israel had many bodies, many organizations that looked after water, and then they've put it into one. And Australia has, some major, they've kind of come into one, but the US seems to have really fragmented water bodies.
Yes.
And organizations that look after it, and that makes it very difficult to monitor.
Yeah. Well, you've got to get on the same page, and again, it feeds back into the leadership conversation, right? You're never going to create meaningful change unless people actually want it at the proper level. So
yeah, that's right. But going from the coastal and the population growth at the coastal for all our various countries, I wanted to talk about like the land and the healing of the land as well, because there's an interesting story of a man in the 70s, not too much longer after Israel and the Netafim invention came out, and he was just using all these natural sequencing farming techniques where he was making these pools of water in the land and just trying to rehydrate, slow the water, and all these kinds of things. And back in about 2016, the UN recognized his work with as one of 5 farms around the world that were really doing true natural farming techniques. It was
wow.
It's really interesting and
Amazing.
Yeah, and then just a couple of years after that, the Prime Minister visited his work. But for many years, this poor man was like an outcast. He was considered crazy for what he was doing, because everything he was doing was against what the government, what the practice was for clearing all the land and the rain dry and run away and flash floods and all these kinds of things we have in Australia. Yeah, so he was able to, just slow things down, put in little bales of hay and things.
Yeah.
Slow it all down.
Well, it is an ecosystem, right? Like, it isn't just one thing. I was talking to a gentleman. I've got the Rocky Mountains 3 hours from me, and I understand the necessity of lumber and everything else. But you look at the effect of clear cutting on a mountainside, right? The retention of the snowpack on the mountainside, how quickly that snowpack now melts and feeds into the rivers, like in weeks instead of months, because that tree line isn't there to shade it and hold it and everything else. So everything it isn't as simple as just water, right? It's not as simple as just land. It all has to work together. So I love hearing that story about like a natural farming, right?
Yeah.
People have been doing this for a long time, a lot longer than us, yet we seem to think we're the smartest people in the room all the time.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because with that man, with Peter Andrews and his work, the government didn't really take on his practices despite visiting him. But what is, at least with our current government, the Albanese government, with my briefings that I give out every week, I'm seeing, some Indigenous kind of. So they're turning to Indigenous people to help heal the land by doing the similar practices to what Peter Andrews was doing. And so that's quite nice that the government's including the traditional owners to be able to work the land and do all that kind of thing. And like with the Colorado River, there's about 30 tribes along that river, and they do have a lot of water allocation. They have about 20% of water allocation, yet they were told that they would be more involved, but I've seen that they haven't really been, which is a bit of a shame, because they know these traditional practices and they, I think, would be quite helpful. But unfortunately, it's just not the case.
100%, and we see the same thing here with the Indigenous community in Canada. One of the organizations I'm a part of, the Old Man River Basin, which is
nice.
feeds into here. The executive director of the OWC, Shannon Frank, just an amazing woman, but she's actually been recognized by some of the local area tribes as her work in advancing, their methodologies within the Old Man River Basin. Because you are absolutely right. Like they managed to preserve water for a long time, and we can learn a lot from what their practices and methodologies were, rather than just current engineering. The beavers, we could go on a whole podcast about beavers, how they clean up the land, right? So
excellent. That's so true. The beavers.
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and we love Canadian beavers. It is true, though. There's so many natural ways of doing things. You see wetlands getting cleaned up, and all the engineering in the world can't do what a beaver did in 6 months. And it makes me laugh. Sometimes we just got to go back to the basics.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's right. I saw about in Oregon a similar kind of practice is happening and helping to. It was more engineered than the Peter Andrews method of these like little pools, chain of, but because it was a hillside, so it was a different, structure. Whereas his was more Australia outback is more flat. Anyway, generally, yeah, but Oregon with their hillside, it was lovely to see. Just this, the like little trail that they dug for the water, and it would go crisscross across the land and help to hydrate it as it moved down with little pools to catch it all the way down. And the pools were, not like big dams, just size little pools. And yeah, it was a really, really interesting work that they were doing. And it made me think about in Australia, I was mentioning about South Australia earlier, the strange, well, it's not really strange, but what they're doing, the farmers are liable if they build dams without a permit. They're being surveilled. There is satellite imagery, and the government does watch if their dams are increased or if they build new dams. And I think it has to do with this, like part of those Mount Lofty ranges in South Australia, in the Hills district, they feed into the Murray-Darling River, and that's, we talked about the water market and water trading, so you can't stop any water there.
Right.
Yeah, because it's all traded.
We want it down there, so you can't stop it up here. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, you can't catch that because that's all sort of part of the market. It's a very, very, very interesting format that down there in South Australia and the Murray-Darling Basin. So so there's that problem, and I always wondered if, maybe doing the smaller ponds, slowing. I don't know. It's probably against, but it would be nice if you could slow down the water and rehydrate the land in the hills as well as on the plains of Australia. But we have these strict water regulations, which don't seem to be as much in America, and I'm not sure in Canada. You seem to be a bit more free. I will say, however, the South Australian government does allow people to have tanks and to catch water.
Yep.
So it's not like everyone can't catch the water, but new build houses are encouraged to have tanks. So I think it's just this particular area of land and how it travels.
Sure.
The Murray-Darling Basin.
Yeah, there's too many impacts downstream, right? So it's government's going to stick their nose in for sure. And, maybe it's needed, maybe it's not. I don't know. Licia, I want to ask you a few questions here and get your thoughts on this. Is sustainability fundamentally a technology challenge or a human behavior challenge?
I think it's human behavior challenge, really. And I think from what I've read of your posts and things, you agree with me because the technology does exist. We do have a lot of technology, like we've seen in Israel and what we've seen in the International Space Station, the recycling of their water to such a pure level. So the technology's been around for a really long time, but for some reason people are slow to pick up.
Adopt.
That. Yeah. So the Peter Andrews and the Oregon, that's the grassroots level people that are trying to be sustainable. At a government level, it's. I mean, they're trying. I know my government does try, and I see their efforts, and that's good. I do like what they're doing with that. So I don't know. And in between, we have the people. In between, we have the constituents that. I don't know. I guess people are busy. I'm not sure. I don't know how to translate that. Everyone loves the environment, though. People want to go out to look at beauty in nature.
I I think often we just stick our head in the sand too far and think it's not going to affect us. Or I kind of look at it as doing, we should want to do better before somebody tells us we have to, right? Water restrictions, they're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Let's not have to have those. Let's just do better.
Yeah.
Intentionally, without having to be forced into doing it. That's my hope for the world one day. But it is. I do agree with you. It is a behavioral. It is a cultural shift in thinking, and it's a leadership shift in thinking.
It is, and I think about even litter. When people are on the side of the road.
Yeah.
So it's that same type of mentality that affects littering, that affects water usage. And Japan is very clean, and for some reason they, something in their culture encourages that. And I would imagine they'd be good with water too, just from the cleanliness.
I would imagine. Yeah, I know. You watch them at the World Cup and they hang out cleaning the stadium after. Yeah. It's like, what on earth?
Yeah.
No, it's, but again, until we open our eyes to what other parts of the world are doing, we're just going to continue to live in our little bubble. And that's why I love conversations like this, because it bridges some of these global barriers. We've got all the technology available to us to do it. So, let's talk with cool people around the world, right, Levi? He's nodding over there. Yep. What gives you the most hope for the future?
For environmental.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just the technology, to be honest.
Yeah.
I lean on the technology, and I really hope people get excited about that. And the technology will make it easier for people as well, so they won't have to make as many changes anyway, and it will make up for what we lack in desire.
I love the way you said that. That is, I'm probably going to, use that in some capacity in some talk somewhere. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
What concerns you the most?
Well, I guess I don't really think about. I don't worry too much about. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that, but I'm not as worried. I'm focused more on the solutions.
Sure.
So
Love it.
And at that, I mean, I guess if I really do think about it, what would concern me is just people's desire of not wanting to contribute and give what they can give. Like, for example, we were talking about the Colorado River and how California has an advantage of having all that coastal water to draw on, and for a government to not be as willing to relinquish some of their rights to the river and say, we'll
engage in that aspect.
And maybe receive extra funding from the federal government and maybe from the states as well to pitch in a little bit to help them build extra either recycling or desal plants. But just to be more willing to say, well, this makes sense.
Right. Let us do our part because we have access to this over here. Let us contribute.
Instead of digging in and saying, well, we have a right to it. These are our water rights. And we expect that, instead of saying, oh, gosh, you guys need more and we can just draw on the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah, it's too true.
So that's the concern about the future, is just not being able to give a little.
Yeah, selfish people is what I just heard.
I guess, that's it.
People being selfish is, very simplistic, but kind of says it in a nutshell, right? Like, be more giving than taking.
Especially when there's options, be easygoing about it. So,
yeah. Licia, I want to ask you one more question. If you could pick one issue that society should be focusing on more today, what would it be?
I think it's not related to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
The issue would be really families, marriage, and that is a real foundational thing, because when you get those things right and people are comfortable and it seems like a lot of people are lonely, a lot of people, and that's the selfishness. If you're happy, then you're giving and you're easygoing and you're not as selfish, I don't think.
Yeah.
And so to go a route down, level down from those issues that we were discussing, I think marriage and family is a root issue.
I will fully admit that is not the answer I expected, but I absolutely love the answer, because I think you're right. You've kind of taken it one layer deeper, and there is cause and effect, right? So when we think about selfish people, about lonely people, we think about the degradation of the family, of marriage. What can the future look like if we can improve, the mental health and well-being of our society, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It'd be a lot different. But there's a real loneliness epidemic and a lot of divorces, a lot of unhappy people within their marriage, and then they just act out and lash out in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a knock-on effect. So
yeah. I love it. Thank you for that, because I think that's very impactful. We're talking about water, sustainability, politics, and we end on family, right? And what is more important than family? So, Licia, I want to thank you very much for your time today. This was a lot of fun. We went some ways I didn't see us going. I learned a lot about you. I'm going to continue to follow your writings, and I do sincerely hope that we connect again in the future here and be able to maybe collaborate on something.
That would be absolutely so lovely. And thank you so much for having me. You've been just so delightful and knowledgeable, and I've really enjoyed spending time with you. And absolutely, I enjoy your posts on LinkedIn, and we'll continue to follow your work.
Yeah, we'll follow each other. Amazing. Thank you, Licia.
Thank you. My pleasure.